virtual dinner, the virtual breakfast dinner. So if you've had a chance to read the blurb about this, you'll know that this is RMIT's Event in the Futures of Collaboration project, which will focus on reimagining one of the most embodied and materially dependent practices of attending a conference, which is a meal. A lot of online or virtual conferences try to replicate parts of the traditional conference, so they do presentations and have question and answer sessions. They might be live streamed or pre-recorded and then uploaded to a website. Those people can then view the presentations and perhaps ask questions in text or speaking to the presenter. But what we're trying to do is taking the virtual conference experience in a bit of a different direction, and we're trying to take one of the less formal parts of the conference and one that's arguably more difficult to digitally replicate and see how that can be practiced remotely. We've got some food here, as you can see, provided for us by the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre. You've got your breakfast there, so there's already an interesting aspect there about the time difference and the time differential between Australia and Europe and the UK. So by way of an introduction, I thought we could just go around the room, let's say both rooms, and introduce ourselves, since not all of us might know everyone. We asked people to share a photo they took on their way to work, because although we're meeting in a virtual space and therefore transcending physical space in some way, I think we're also still embodied in our local area. Well, so I'm Andrew, as you probably know. Postdoc here at RMIT. This is my photo from my morning commute this morning, which is actually from Wollongong, which is up near Sydney. I took a train at 6:30 in the morning to catch a plane at 8:30, which was delayed until 10, and then flew down to Melbourne to be here for a virtual conference, which is ostensibly so that people don't have to fly, but we'll get past that irony. I'm interested in virtual conferencing as a way to, minimise air travel and to think about how we can collaborate remotely, because I think that's sort of what we've got to deal with in the future, is a world where we can't move around as readily as we can today.
My name's Yolandi Strangers, and I'm a research fellow here at the Centre for Urban Research. Very much interested in alternatives to collaboration and alternatives to air travel, really, and about these informal spaces, like how we replicate more just casual interactions, and if it's possible to do that with virtual forms. So this is outside my office this morning, and it's you can't see it right now, but there are a whole bunch of birds that are just starting to nest in the top of the building. And I thought I'd take this photo because I got swooped walking to work today from the suburbs for the first time, and I was like, oh, spring's on its way. But I was too freaked out and scared to take a photo at the time, so I was getting away from the birds. So I took this one because I know there's some more about to nest above my building as well.
Yeah, this is, I guess, from a couple of days ago, and I'm actually having a number of going away do's at the moment because I'm leaving work tomorrow. I work I've been working actually in a kind of research management role in media and communication over the last couple of years, and all the kind of going away do's we've had over the last bit have just revolved entirely around food, but also they've been kind of interesting in terms of those moments of intimacy that you have with colleagues where, for instance, in this case, this is in an open lounge, and the school is very large. We have about 130 staff, and as staff came and went, people kind of took bits of the pastries as they passed through and made comments about the kind of the gathering, and also congratulated me on my pregnancy, etc. Research-wise, I've been working with Yolandi and Andrew on this project on work-life ecologies. As part of that, we've been interested in, new and emergent work and life practices around everyday digital engagement. And early on, actually, in the project, we were talking about having a conference that could sort of capture, the kind of essence of this project. And we're actually imagining sort of non-flying conferences of all kinds, you know, maybe on boats or on a train. At one point we thought about having a conference where we're sort of moving through the desert of Australia on a train.
I'm Sophie. I'm a Masters by Research candidate. Tanya is one of my supervisors. And I've been doing a little bit of work with Andrew on some of this work over the last couple of years as a research assistant. And I'm the keeper of the robot, to doing some more work along those lines. This is a picture of the Royal Exhibition Building in Melbourne, which I walk past every morning. My research project for my Masters is actually about food waste and different things to do with bits of food that would otherwise go to waste. But separately to that, I also do some teaching through RMIT, and just recently I've started doing some teaching to high school kids. I've been teaching a stress management workshop to them for the last couple of years, but there's just a new project that's a digital version of that, so I've been teaching those workshops via video conference just for the last, I've done 2 of them now, so I kind of have this interest in these sorts of technologies for reasons of access as well. So those workshops are given to students in rural schools in rural Victoria who can't come to the university to take part in those workshops otherwise.
I've got quite a practical interest in this today because on my door you see this poster, Appropriate Conference, and at the conference I would quite like to organise presence, a virtual, even maybe a part of a virtual conference dinner. So I'm quite interested in how this goes. The conference is not about mobile utopia as blueprints, just talking about what should the world be like in a world where it's also dystopian at the moment. But it's about using utopia as a method to imagine better futures and critique existing futures. So it would be interesting to know people who are interested in attending the conference virtually and participating in the conference dinner.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, I'm here because I'm a facilitator, so I'm interested in interactions in real time or otherwise. I was involved in the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council held one virtual sandpit, which is an immersive 5-day event. EPSRC commissioned a virtual environment, and I was headquartered at the Nottingham Mixed Reality Lab, and I was moving avatars of participants around into different rooms, and we looked into how much that replicated a real sandpit. We began with everybody getting together in real time, so we actually physically saw people, knew their names, then we dealt with just the avatars. But interestingly, we didn't bring everybody back together at the end. I think that was a missing trick, just for reflection. And the photograph of my commute to work that you would be looking at now, you have to imagine, because I think I saw a deer, and so I stopped the car, and indeed it was a deer, and it ran in front of me, and then I was excited because where I live you very rarely see a deer, and so I scrambled for my camera, and at the point I was scrambling for my camera, another one, Joe, came behind, and I was so excited to see too. I was shaking with excitement, and then I just thought, you know what? I have missed my first real opportunity of looking at these by looking at my camera. So I'm telling you, anyway, I saw 2 deer this morning.
Hello everyone, I'm Roger Whitton. I know some of you from previous conversations that we've had. So I'm a lecturer here in, not in sociology, but in imagination, which is a kind of design section of the university. My interest, I'm on sabbatical at the moment, so I'm coming for this, so I should have a good articulation of my interest. I'm very much interested at the moment in collaborative practice. We've got a number of sort of interventional design projects here where we try and equip groups to do new forms of collaborative practice, sometimes co-located, sometimes remote, and sort of innovate in the way that they work. So I'm coming at that from that perspective, and I'm really interested in conversations like this one and how they relate to mimicry of physical practices. So kind of replication, mimicry, this relationship between that and technology, I think is a really interesting space. And you often find stuff that really doesn't work as well as insights and things that do. So it's kind of a bit of a rubbish move, but I'll make it anyway and say that like so many other conferences and sessions that I've tried to run in the past where you set a piece of homework, the homework message did not reach you. So for your ethnography that you're doing, there's a kind of another kind of role here that I can play as someone who's come in and is interested but didn't get the memo, even though it was sent to me, of course, about the photograph. So I'd love to share with you a photograph of a slippery path and my bicycle wheel, which is doubtless what I would have produced. But yeah, that element of this participation didn't come to me. I assumed that it was this thing here that I was doing. So both apologies, but also the fact that those sorts of things are not as present in people who are coming to this through, say, a web page or something like that.
Yeah. So this is where we're going to do our mini interviews, and we're going to leave the main room and we're going to go to our breakout rooms. So these links are on the page. Have you got the devices set up, Monica, for these?
Well, we've got Dean room 1, we've got room 2 over there, and room 3 and 4 over there.
Okay.
But we only have 3 people here, so we only need 3 rooms. So 1, 2, 3, maybe?
Sure.
When Monica and I first started talking, we were just reflecting on, well, the limitations perhaps of conferences full stop, and the normative way, the way that in which they've become such standardised aspects of collaboration in academia without us necessarily challenging that assumption. But of course it is perhaps starting to be challenged, particularly in the kind of Australian setting where we're often travelling huge distances, whether it's internationally or even within Australia. So the sort of sustainability question, not only in terms of environment, but also just in terms of our kind of working lives, because we're all so busy now, to start to actually say, oh, conferences, why? Why do we do conferences? And the particular kind of format that conferences have taken has become so sort of standardised and normative. And so Monica was talking about with this kind of experimental conference that she's setting up, that the conference committee wanted to put forward some different approaches to how you'd run a kind of event like this, with 7-minute papers you were talking about, 7-minute presentations or something like that. And what was really interesting there was Monica was talking about the resistance that they faced from certain quarters, where people had not just a fixed idea of what a conference should be, but also associations, I guess, between certain types of format and perhaps prestige.
So I was thinking for the conference, the Mobile Utopia conference, what we could do is, I have been could actually pair people. So you could give somebody remote on an iPad to somebody local and say, you kind of work out which ones you want to see together. And so the person who carries the iPad person or the robot person, they make sure they look after each other so that they see enough and they can hear properly, and then they also discuss afterwards maybe?
I toyed with that idea with these telepresence robots, so with the Padbot. We sort of found out that it's not a very high-end one, but I think even with a high-end one, it's quite difficult to navigate around, and you almost need a chaperone, so to sort of not necessarily do everything for you, but to be there if you get stuck on a door, or and to position you in the right spot. But if as you were saying, if someone was just going around a conference with this, then you can get a prime position. You know, you can be right in the front of the room rather than having to be very sort of in the way with this clumsy robot. And I think these kind of very mobile devices which still allow you to sort of capture, and if someone else is there navigating their body around to be in their best position rather than the telepresence. That's a really cool idea, that paired attendance.
And I guess I contrasted that with one of my best experiences at an event that was a conference, but in fact probably the most useful parts of it were not the conference parts. They were the classic, hanging out with people socially. Was a conference held at St Hugh's College at Oxford in the early 2000s, and we were all staying at the same fairly rundown college, and it was professors and PhD students alike all staying in fairly basic digs and all sharing meals at the big college dormitory and sharing drinks at the fairly basic pub. But it was a very democratising kind of experience, and I think perhaps speaks to the sort of hierarchical dimensions that tend to creep into traditional conferences that Monica's just was talking about when she was talking about this kind of alternative that they've attempted to set up, and the kind of challenges that some people find that presents to them.
Well, we talked a little bit about how that us being paired up in this exercise even is a structure that isn't usually imposed in a conference, and what that I guess it gives different opportunities for engagement that wouldn't be there if you were just attending a conference in person, because you may not be quite as likely to end up in a one-on-one conversation with someone in the same kind of way, or at least not through the kind of formal structure of the conference, or of the conference dinner in this case, because this has been a formal structure imposed on us.
There was this horrible pairing of Sophie and myself. I didn't know, I couldn't have negotiated that with this team with authority. I couldn't have said, Yolanda, why don't we have a chat, because I'm taking so much attention away from everything. So I thought that was great. But then we also spoke about the informal human social interactions that came from that, where all of the value lies.
Through the structures of how you arrange the interactions. So if you say now, okay, you pair into these pairs and you talk about this, then you kind of create the intimacy that's needed for really in-depth discussions.
I don't
call it fake, encourage it or facilitate.
In the social interactions or the downtime, informal interactions, there's a natural tendency, isn't there, to be drawn to people like us. So it is possible that if we leave all of the outputs generated through the informal, that actually we're missing the collaborative potential of the serendipity of being sort of thrown together with people who are not like us, whose approach is very different. Because in a bar or in the coffee area, I'll talk to people like me.
Can you structure possibilities for serendipity? And I think your idea of pairing, I was thinking that, we were talking about the limitations of the lack of embodiment, but in a sense there are some benefits perhaps to not being embodied in certain spaces, particularly for the shyer conference participant who might be able to make their presence felt without actually being physically there. And that actually may enable them to have a voice in a way that they wouldn't normally. And that perhaps it produces a different kind of intimacy. Monica and I were talking about on the one hand, the weirdness of not quite looking each other in the eye when we were having that conversation, but there's a different kind of intimacy there. So I think it's not about, you know, replicating what might go on at a conference. It's about new possibilities in terms of different forms of collaborative sociality.
This is an example, actually.
Yes.
This is a perfect example. So, okay, if we were designing it so to mimic the real world, then we wouldn't have to do this. But because it isn't the same, we have to do this. But this is a way of transposing our interactions into the space. You know, it requires new conventions, new ways of. Some things we have to make more explicit, like, you know, telling you to talk to the microphone. But other things are also like, you know, like I showed you before. I turned the camera to show you what, because I know what you're seeing and what you're not seeing, so we can adapt. So yeah, it's difficult to just, you know, to put it in a concise way. But basically, we don't have to mimicry everything. We can rely on people's creativity to work with the different affordances of this arrangement.
I'm in complete agreement with Monica. I feel like the formal structures should match the technology, so they should play to whatever strengths this thing can do. But then, if you buy his argument, the informal stuff has to happen with as much potential for intimacy as possible. So, you know, you could have something that really suits the digital interaction, like timetables, slots, links, buttons that you click on to bring you around the different experiences, things that can do that. But then when it's time to allow intimate interactions to develop, maybe that's the point where you need this kind of based on highly mimicking kind of experience that's really like as close as you can get to talking to a human person. It feels like, to me anyway, coming at this from the outside, if you're trying to create a virtual conference, that's one of the resources you have, that ability to move between these formal structures and then more open and informal interactions, like through a hangout or something.
Well, speaking of which, I'm really keen to experiment with this informal eating. We're hungry and we only have half an hour left.
Should we rendezvous in room? I think it's sort of Can you see what I'm seeing now?